Hello, everyone. My name is Sachin. If you don't know me, I am an assistant professor at UCSF, where I run the Technology, Mental Health, and Society Lab. And my research is focused on how societal change and technical design both influence how people conceptualize their mental health, as well as how people look for care. So it kind of straddles human-computer interaction, and then as well as like medical anthropology and sociology. In fact, actually, like before coming to UCSF, have been very active with lots of different Society for Digital Mental Health members. David Moore and Jessica Schleider were some of my postdoc advisors. And then, of course, before that, I was a PhD student with Manmunda Chowdhury. Chris, do you want to do a quick intro before we like really jump in?
Sure thing, sure thing. Happy to be here, and proud to serve alongside you, Sachin. So my background, it says Modular Feedback. What the heck is that? Company I started last year. After Wobot sadly contracted, that was let's see, that was my intro to digital mental health, starting in 2022 to 2025. Did a lot of really exciting and personally gratifying work with regards to language modeling and social determinants of health. So get into a little bit of that a little bit later, and really just eager to learn why everybody is here, the types of stuff that we can do to serve you and make this the type of community that you enjoy coming to.
Perfect.
Yes, it
Thank you.
was. Thank you, Ellie.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. So like we said, super welcome to the new SIG. We are really, really excited to have such a great group of people. In terms of the scope and goals of our SIG, right, as all of you have probably noticed, AI is increasingly a core part of mental health research and practice at each part of the pipeline, right? So it's not just in terms of when people, for example, use chatbots for their mental health or in terms of like automated diagnosis, but even in terms of like our research methods, right? Like I certainly am using AI in research pretty often. So our broad goal is, given that AI is becoming such a core part of digital mental health practice and research, broad goal is to advance conversations, research collaborations, and action around the tensions between the potential benefits of AI with the needs for those advancements to be safe, person-centric, and reliable. So in terms of the scope and goals, right, creating a space for us to discuss these new developments, to foster collaborations between academia, industries centered on what we each do best, which is why, Chris and I come from different angles, right, and different backgrounds and perspectives. And then to provide guidance on safety standards. So one of the things that I know Chris and I have talked a lot about, Stephen and I as well, is that I mean, digital mental health professionals have been thinking about these kinds of safety issues around how do we ensure that people can use technology in a safe way for quite a while now, right? And I think that there's a lot that we can bring to the picture when thinking about AI and safety conversations when people use chatbots for mental health purposes. So those are kind of the scope and the goals of the SIG. But we want to hear from you. And in fact, after these brief slides and then Chris's slides as well, we will have a open discussion session to hear about like what specific things you would want to hear. Um, but one of the cool things is that we sent out a survey to, get your email on our listserv. And by the way, if you are not on the listserv, please just email Chris or I, and we can totally just add you to the listserv of people who are interested. She had 120 people who said that they were interested in joining, which is fantastic. It's great that we have such a great group of people. I'll present just a little bit of the data breakdown of who these individuals are, where they're coming from, some of their motivations as kind of like a tool for us to start our discussion. So I think one of the things that's cool about the people, this 120 people who responded, is that actually like 56 of the people who described whether they were early career or not, 56% of them or 57% are actually early career, which is really exciting because that means that, there are a lot of new people to be able to, think about these issues related to safety and digital mental health alongside people who have been doing this work for a very long time. In terms of member roles, we are primarily researchers, right? So 66% of people who describe what they're doing are researchers, but there are also quite a few, like 30% of people are student and trainees. They're clinical care providers. We have people with lived experience, as well as like technical builders, engineers. So I think that we have a very good group of people to discuss the kinds of tensions between, for example, how do you make money, right, in digital mental health? And how do you do so in a way that's ethical and feels right by patients and people with lived experience? So I think we have a great group of people who are interested in this. In terms of primary affiliation, half of us come from universities, just like between Chris and I, but many come from digital health companies. One of the things that I thought was interesting was that some come from private clinical practice, which it's always great to hear about how people who are doing private clinical practice and treating patients are taking new research developments and integrating them into their practice, and vice versa, thinking about the things that they're seeing in sessions, how those might influence the research questions that we're asking. In terms of years of experience, like I mentioned, most of the people, or about half of all people, have about 1 to 5 years of experience in digital mental health, which is great. Said it's great to kind of expand the reach of our group. And in terms of motivations for joining, and I'll go more into this in the next slide, a lot of folks wanted to stay current with current day research. And as Chris will talk about, sometimes like the AI research field can move so fast, right? And the methods that are being used can also move so fast. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure to do as part of our group is, make sure that people are able to have engagements with different research. Networking is also a big part, as well as like building implementation work. Quite a good number of people mentioned that they were curious about different aspects of safety, and reading the responses, it's not just safety from, like I said, from the like AI people using AI chatbots or AI in clinical care, but some were even interested in like mechanistic interpretability studies. So actually looking at the nuts and bolts of the different neural networks that make up LLMs that underlie mental health chatbots. And then others were very interested in like equity as well as youth, right? So how do we make sure that, for example, companion apps, right, are not affecting kids when they're in a pretty important developmental stage? So we also have a pretty diverse group of people here. In terms of specific asks from members, research and lightning talks, which Chris and I have a bunch of ideas about, method-focused workshops and tutorials around AI, deep dives into successful and unsuccessful industry deployments, and more conversations around right profit mechanisms, making sure that businesses can stay afloat, right? What does having a healthcare business look like in like a new federal environment, the regulatory environment? So on that line, cross-disciplinary panels and then working groups and white papers on safety standards. And then finally, works in progress seminars, journal clubs, and then informal coffee chats, which we are excited to make sure to do at different conferences that are also in person. So those are what all of our members asked for in terms of generally, but we want to open up the conversation to you all. I know Chris also wants to include some detail around his experiences, or sorry, around their experiences. So we will go ahead and move to Chris.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the faces and the desires here and everything like that, and I'm just happy that everybody has an angle to contribute. There's a saying by Kennedy, not the current Kennedy, but John F. Kennedy, but it's ask not what your SIG can do for you, ask what you can do for your SIG. So we are accepting of, if you have ideas or concepts that you want to share, like I know I'm looking at one person here who has an expertise in monitoring the various state regulations and complexities around that. So when we draw the connection between, we have a research audience, hopefully there's a lot of people who want to see that come into fruition as various influences in terms of further research or product development or policy influence and things like that. And I think that we have a good gathering of people to so that it's not just us. When I go through a couple of slides, I just want to couch it in the idea that I've been a practitioner in healthcare AI since 2018. So there is the big language modeling revolution that happened in 2022. I was actually really excited about what was going on in 2018. So it was like mind blowing to see like that big acceptance. It's opening up it's opening up all kinds of conversations on data that has just been sitting around for decades that people thought couldn't be analyzed or turned into some morsel of value for people. So I wanted to just frame it up in terms of, yes, LLMs are getting a lot of the spotlight and stuff like that here, but I wanted to open this up to be a place that like the research that you're seeing out there, the new models that are being developed, a lot of that doesn't fall under that paradigm, but does have a lot of potential value for the types of things that you might be interested in doing for patients and society. So that's the context that I want to come from when I start my slides. So I like to couch things in the concept like just getting it down to a fundamental agreement and the big question, what is AI? Because like it's such a broad term, and we're hearing it over and over again. But there's just these like there it's I equate it all like it's so prevalent that if someone says AI is coming into healthcare, I equate it to like software is coming to healthcare. Like we have to get into like what are we actually doing here? What are the specifics? So this little slide here, this is just Chris Hemphill's interpretation of the world, not anything that you can take to the bank, but equipping silicon to make decisions. Because a very long time ago, like even the basic concept around neural networks is a product of the 1940s, and the a lot of the early talk around AI was being extremely impressed with what you could do with rules engines, complex nests of if-then statements. So there is the rule engine aspect that it's one of the original founding principles, and I would say actually, even though nobody's calling it that these days, very prevalent and very useful in today's parlance. And there's the data informed element. So the data informed that machine learning classification that applies to everything under the sun that is using data to automate decisions, whether it be something as like familiar as logistic regression to some of the newer models today that are based on transformer architecture and a lot of the new stuff happening. And the reason I think that's so important, and it just makes me reflect on a lot of the stuff that I've done in the past. So it's a mix of industry. I don't want to say true academia or anything like that, just kind of a fellowship with NYU McSilver's Institute for Poverty Policy and Social Justice Research. But overall, like the time at Actium was Sachin, like that partnership that you were talking about between academia and startups. One thing I really want to show a lot of people who are in the digital mental health space, either on either side, that these types of partnerships are possible. Actium Health at the time, when we partnered with University of Chicago, that was no more than a 120-person company. Like that wasn't like a gigantic effort. It wasn't like OpenAI making a partnership. They were willing to partner with us because we had reached a problem where we knew about the bias that was present in clinical machine learning algorithms that others were deploying, and we asked the tough question about ourselves, found that our results weren't satisfactory, and they helped guide us through that process. So I want to encourage that kind of work. Wobot, obviously very proud of working for that company. Thank you for the sympathies, Ellie. I do think that the spirit lives on in everyone who is our mission was radical access to care, and you see a lot of people who have moved on into other companies, hopefully infiltrating and indoctrinating that mission to live on. But very exciting work there around language modeling capabilities, and it wasn't just for the turn-by-turn chat system. It was a system that helped to identify that a significant chunk of our users were talking about social needs, social determinants of health that were addressable by, like they were reimbursable by Z codes identified, but I think it's the G. My coding knowledge is embarrassing, but Kira is giving me positive feedback. But overall, I just also want to open up the doors, not just turn by turn conversations. It's like if we're able to pick up on other types of signals, how can we better employ models to route people to the effective conversations and care that they need? The NYU McSilver Institute, that was kind of a continuation of they realized the work that we were doing with University of Chicago, and they're just really involved in some really important pushes. They released a paper recently about using causal AI methods to identify identify protective factors for suicide risk. It is an amazing paper, and there's continuing to put out amazing work with their AI hub, and just another example of the people that aren't getting the huge headlines and all that, but they are reclaiming the algorithm. Modular Feedback, that's my own company, but I started it last year, and we've done some surprising work in the health plan space. I had no clue I would be working with health plans, and don't shoot me down if you're anti health plan. I will convert you and talk to you about the good things that are going on under the hood. But just wanted to say that in terms of like some of the background and experience with AI and these framings. Another thing I'm really passionate about is using this stuff at the right time. So when to use which between this symbolic rules engine approach versus machine learning approaches. Y'all tell me if it's boring. Shoot me down if you will. But I we're going to play a game here where hey, a user in an app scores 12 on the PHQ-9 depression screening, and the app needs to categorize that user severity level. Should we be using a rules engine for that or machine learning? Oh, I see a chat. I mean, you can speak up, y'all. Okay, yeah, rules. Yeah, thank you. Feel free to speak up, though, y'all. Um, this is an example where the quantity is known. Like if I like to say that you break out of your rules engine when it doesn't work, like when it's so complex, so interweaved that you can't identify the answer through simple heuristics. That's when you go to these probabilistic approaches. But this is an example of something that has a known mapping and quantity. And I put stuff up, like I know that was a pretty easy one, but I put it up because like I just encounter a lot of scenarios where people are looking for the machine learning magic when this is actually going to be the better and faster, more ROI friendly way to go. The next one, oh, I've already given the answer. The next one, you want to segment app users based on usage times, module use, and prior conversation topics. Volunteer. Rowan, taking it home here. Machine learning. This is an example where, like some of the exciting things come to play. Where if I'm looking at segmentation models and prior conversation topics, yes, it is possible to establish a rules engine around that, but it just gets extremely complex, extremely time consuming, and this can help navigate those massive conversation sets in a different way. And part of this is part of what I wanted to highlight here is that there are some very recent advancements in clustering, such as technologies like hierarchical DB scan, HDB scan, advancements in language models and things like that that make these things possible. So again, we have our LLMs, but I want to, like, as we look at research and look at the newest technologies, I want to look at the whole landscape of things that can add value for our clinicians and patients. I'm gonna do maybe one or two more, but I keep giving the answer away anyway. Your app detects concerns around self-harm with the user, and the user endorsed those concerns. The user wants to see someone, and the app has integrated scheduling. So which paradigm is going to help us find the best time for them to schedule? Between rules and machine learning. Rules. Yes. So y'all caught the little trip up. It is already like the detecting concerns around self-harm, like through conversation. That would likely be a machine learning approach with potentially some hard rules baked in. But now that it's already done that, and this one is actually really important to me because a lot of people do look for AI to identify scheduling times and things like that. But there's a lot of much simpler things that you can do to do this efficiently and quickly. But the basic concept here is that, hey, with each of these use cases that I brought up, this one, there's a directive to get more people to use a feature within an app. Like we want to get into exciting things like causal modeling, bandits, recommender systems, especially when I think about recommenders and their impact that they have on mental health. That's going to be some really exciting conversations to have. The last one was kind of a gotcha. It was basically asking about a chat bot, which a user puts in text, and there's a sequence of text inputs that you have to interpret and respond to. Well, we look at those as both machine learning and rule systems because you want to build harnesses around those systems that guide people and navigate them in the right way. So that was like I wanted to give an in the moment introduction to how we often think about algorithms, because this guide here, this is an old guide, but it's still useful in terms of there's different types of tasks within AI and machine learning. What if I want to know if a thing, like if something is one value or not another? Or what if I want to predict a certain amount of income or revenue that might happen with a certain set of actions that we might take? Or, like I mentioned, clustering. That was something that we did heavily at Wobot, was trying to identify what clusters of engagement patterns people fall into. These are all various things that play into the types of work that create good experiences within applications, but also create the types of communication, return on investment evaluation, and those types of things that you need to be able to have a stable and long term delivery of a system. And when I say dissecting AI research, we will guide you. There's a lot of papers out there with a lot of deep mathy maths that are intimidating to read and approach, but we can work through these types of things together, dial it down to the essence, and I put some very like simple like probability functions here. Like I like to get into that a little bit, but I do like to keep it at that layman's level. I want to make it welcoming, but I also want to to basically demystify these solutions and demystify AI. I always want to keep us centered on, well, this one is just determining the probability of something happening given these other factors. Or sequence prediction, this is actually the probability function under large language models, which is what is the value of like what token do I predict is the most likely given some prior sequence? Like we get down to what these things are actually doing, and it helps us better decide when to employ which models, when to deliver which solutions, what's going to have the most benefit in a socio-technical context. And I want to wrap up my section just by saying that AI methods, like there's a butterfly effect. Like it looks like it's a very small component because like there's the excitement around a model that accurately predicts, but how is that fitting into a product team and their vision and delivery for a patient population? And then most importantly, what's the impact of that product, and how do we measure it? What are the things that we look for to understand what the impact is for our patients and users? That ties in, like I tried to tie in with an industry perspective, policy perspective, and community perspective as well. All of these things tie in together. AI methods have an impact on all of these all of these things, but then in the reverse, these all have an impact on what's going to be most effective and what we use. But with that, just wanted to pause on my piece and just open it up to like, let's get to talking and learning about each other. And there's exciting people that I would love to bring to the fore and all that, but really would love to hear from y'all on what's the coolest to hear about coming in our upcoming sessions.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Chris. So maybe to start it off, if some could say, some of the aspects of AI and mental health that you're interested in, or if there are questions that you've been thinking a lot about when it comes to AI and mental health that you want to do. Rawan, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think you already have your hand up, so that's great.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Rowana McKenna. I'm a PhD student, University at Albany SUNY. I have a question for Chris. I work or my research interest now is the AI applications and digital mental health. And currently, I'm working on machine unlearning. So basically, for getting information, whether it's for legal reasons or sensitive or whatever. So have you ever worked on such thing in your startup or work?
I like the framing you said, unlearning. So the concept of there are things that you want to prevent from living on in the history of a model, or could you expand on that? That's like a new word to me. I would love to learn
Oh,
more.
okay. So basically, I'm not sure if you know the concept of differential privacy. Basically, all users' data would contribute to the output or the prediction of a model. So we are trying to prevent the bias of specific data points. But sometimes the model will learn, like they will have the knowledge to focus on for your information, for example. So we want
Hmm.
to prevent that. So we use something called machine unlearning. So we want to remove specific data points. Uh, if the user, for example, requests for legal issues or whatever. But I've noticed that not many people focusing on machine unlearning, they usually focus on the learning part.
Hmm.
And even if they work on machine unlearning, they think it's like blocking issue, not canceling issue. So that's why I was wondering like if you ever worked on such thing.
I never worked on such a thing with such a title, but
Okay.
there's definitely parallels here because I'll recall the work in bias mitigation. One example is that, like in the insurance industry, there are certain things called protected factors, protected variables that are not allowed to influence rate making or what a premium should be. So, would you achieve the effect of like protecting against discrimination based on race, socioeconomic status, and things like that by simply removing those variables? Absolutely not. Because those things can come into other factors. There's a like if there's a question around like in insurance there's a random variable like whether or not somebody owns a garage. That's actually like if you just have that in the cluster of variables that are influencing model prediction, well, it's a sneaky indicator for socioeconomic status. So it's again that the solution isn't simply removing those variables as well and hunting and pecking, but it's really using causal methods to help identify what actually is important to the model's decision and eliminate from the flow those types of things that might be polluting factors. So it's like I haven't worked on machine unlearning proper, but the idea that we want to build models that don't bring in commingled variables that cause biases and discrimination, I feel like that's a little bit relevant, but you could tell me I'm absolutely wrong.
Yeah, so like you've never designed like the system itself to have a layer for that. It's only like applying methods. Is it like that?
So like I've worked on causal systems and bias mitigation strategies, but not
Mhm.
with the not with the machine unlearning layer
I
identified.
see. I see. Thank you.
Kira had a question, and then
Oh yeah, I just wanted to respond, Roman, to your comment. So I split my time between clinical work and industry consulting around regulation and also like the mental health safety and compliance. And this has actually come up. I spoke with a builder, I think late last fall, who had actually created a clinical product. So it was an AI scribe that was using specific identity markers. And one of the things they created in there, and I don't know how this works, but I know, like in theory, and certainly from the clinical perspective, it was one of my reservations in using AI scribes at all, was because of precisely this reason that there are in certain states limitations for what can be reported, potential danger to people based on like immigration status or their gender identity, things like that. And there are ways I know that in the kind of in clinical practice to be able to create that. So anyway, I it was a really cool product. They got bought out, so they're elsewhere now, but good for them. But yeah, so I just think that the topic is really cool, and certainly from the clinical side, it's really really needed to find ways to either unlearn things or block. I know the data side is much more mysterious to me, so you all can speak to that. But how you go about building this, and certainly the clinical need is there. So just wanted to put that out there.
And
I was
I'll add that we can actually make a note to have someone come in from like the security and privacy space of maybe one of the digital mental health companies to chat about this because I think it would be a very
Yeah.
interesting conversation.
And I'll make a note too of like data scientists and others who are like especially in the healthcare space, they get excited about things that help them better address privacy and better well, like, better address those issues so that they can focus heavily on the modeling itself. So that's kind of like that ecosystem partnership. And I would take too much time, but to tell us about some tools that people are excited about within health plans. Rachel had a good one.
Well, I'm trying not to be distracting. Um, So I'm curious, and then I think it was Trina brought it up in the member meeting just before this, just about how wanting the SIGs, how the SIGs are overlapping and wanting them to work together. And I was just curious to hear from you both how you see, because AI is infiltrating everything. So the industry SIG has been very focused on topics of AI in the last year when we have quarterly, I think we've had like quarterly meetings. So I'm curious to hear from you both how you see the SIG be differentiating as well as working with the other SIGs.
Yeah, totally. So I can go ahead and start, Chris, and feel free to chime in. Yeah, so I think the way that we've been thinking about it is that we kind of serve as a hub for all things AI related, and that can span anything from literally, like I said, the whole pipeline, right? The methods of how we evaluate AI models, the methods with which we're using AI models in our research, all the way to, right, like industry collaborations, the way that industry is thinking about AI. And so at least the model that we've used, at least just starting out, is like, for example, with the health equity SIG, doing like joint events. And I think we plan on completely doing that for the industry SIG as well. So if we find great industry speakers, or if they do from AI companies or from digital mental health companies that we think are relevant, we're happy to partner with them. But in terms of the actual like quarterly group meetings, we're thinking that those might be separate just because we are a little bit broader in terms of what we're thinking about in terms of AI.
Echo that. That was a fantastic early collaboration. They brought it to us, and like youth mental health. That's a deep health equity issue as well as this underlying technologies. So one thing that like we saw in the responses, people wanting to know more about like that demystification aspect, or like getting into specifics on how certain models work, what they're doing, and when they apply. That get like we want to have the broad socio-technical lens there, but we can bring it to like, well, hey, I recently saw this paper regarding some structure regarding LLMs. How might that apply, or how might that be helpful in a social in an SDMH context? So long story short, like the socio-technical stuff, but we can also get deeper on some of the newer advancements and things that we're working with that we're excited about.
Cool, thanks. Like I said, all good people doing good things.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, I think we'd also love if there are other questions, definitely would love to hear them, but also other places of interest for people around AI and mental health, or things that you would want to see from the SIG in terms of events. As I mentioned, one of the things that we've been thinking about is, of course, at like conferences like the like medical informatics conferences, or different like psychology and like psychological science conferences, having like meetups there. But are there other things or other places where you feel like you would, you have some interest in AI, in a specific niche part of AI and mental health?
Sure, I've got one. Apologies, I have my camera off because I'm getting ready for the Tucson meetup, local meetup. I'm very interested in the how I think about the embodiment of the avatar of tools that talk back to you, chatbots or other type things. Um, I think that this connects to the people having delusional spirals, dealing with very sycophantic, sort of over enthusiastic responses. But I think I really, really loved when I heard about all the thought that went into Woebot's agent, and like how it communicated what role it served, and like specific things like trying to get you back out in the world instead of talking more with the agent. So for instance, I've been in conversations with some folks who are thinking, okay, how might we better deliver our interventions to or our like scientific findings in firefighter research, right? This is one connection that I have. And I'm like, yeah, what if we had a chat bot that we could do it? And obviously this is like a little bit of mental health, but it's also like broader health, like and health communication. And so it's like, okay, maybe that people could choose between a like scientist voice or like a firefighter captain voice or something, you know. And so like um it just seemed to me that there's a lot around the relational quality and the communication tone, and then like the actual guard rails and pieces that like make that able to happen that I think are really interesting to a lot of people who are interested in kind of like how might we have these agent-based conversations. So it's a big space, but that's something I'd be fascinated to learn more about.
That would be high on the list of things that I would love to share about. And I'm going to say learnings there are pretty recent because like capabilities there are recent. So obviously learnings would be recent too.
Mm.
So one example that I want to bring up is a company that I advise called Modality. I think I mentioned them in the other call too, but they have a platform that does training for community health workers and non-medical healthcare professionals. And the concept of their training isn't just like taking tests or anything like that. It's exposing people to the types of conversations that they might encounter that are very difficult. So, like when we're thinking about a community health worker context, we're thinking about how to help people who might be coming down from an addictive phase or what have you. So one thing that was important to them was these scenarios they have to reflect the types of people that we'll be working with, and rather than coming at it from an angle of imposing this is who this is what this community looks like, they actually have a detailed community input process where they talk to the community health workers and others who are within the communities that are being served to understand and better relate the types of conversations and the people that are these avatars to that audience. Just an example, but like it's led to a deep dive into a lot of research and into other similar kind of persona driven methods, and yeah, would love to go deeper on that. I know we have to make time for all the questions, but yeah, very exciting.
And I think one of the groups that we'd love to, bring in are there are a lot of these community groups, which I know Ellie, you and I have talked about, that help support people who are experiencing delusional spirals, right? Or people who are like either transitioning away from like a very intense companionship experience with a bot. And of course, already Chris and I, we've been thinking about how to bring some of those individuals from those community groups in to like give talks about, how they're thinking about it.
That would be a powerful perspective to bring in. I also want to highlight too Dr. K. Nikiforova, who is cheating on us at the industry SIG. But they're a valuable resource in like understanding that like they've been doing a lot of work with clinicians, like leading workshops to help identify like navigating a landscape where people are depending on AI for social support and therapy, and having that spiral away that you were just discussing. I think that would be excellent to bring on here too.
Do you see, I am primarily a clinician as well. And so when I met you, Chris, and you showed me your PDF picture of safe for use I was immediately went out and used it with families. So do you see that your safer use AI work coming in here, or being kind of like a thought leader in terms of educating clinicians or families?
So a little bit of background that I didn't put it on my screen, but I should have. But saferaiuse.org. That's a little partnership between Kay and I to just have free, easy to use resources for people that are using AI for mental health support. we consider it kind of a harm reduction approach because like you're not going to get to people by just a 100% shame lens about these tools and about like what big tech is doing and everything like that. But there's it's just a resource out there to help people identify like what are some like, and this is more consumer facing, but what are behaviors that I'm noticing about my own use with this machine that I should be aware of and modify. Is the machine, is it telling me to keep secrets from people? Am I relying more on the machine than my family and others for social supports and things like that? It's just how I would Rachel, to answer your question, would love to bring in those perspectives when I put up that final slide that said the users, the industry, the policy, and the community. That's where I would see that phasing in. Like how do we communicate about this stuff? Like the a little bit about that partnership was there's a little bit like my angle from it was to help demystify that image. A lot of people have the image that everything that these machines say is perfect, and it was able to help me with my homework really well, so it must be really good at other things. So we kind of demystified that approach and then provide some simple, nice, pretty cartoony explanations on like, hey, how do you get back out into the world, and how do you restore your social supports and stuff like that. Would love to bring those perspectives.
I feel like a dinosaur in this crowd to some extent, but I probably was on that end of the distribution, the 20 plus years of being in this space. And so, I think one of the things that excites me most about this right now is, having been around from the days when we would have web-based interventions, which were just web pages of text materials and, very skeuomorphic kind of ideas about, somebody's going to sit there and consume session one and then go off into a week's worth of homework, and getting to a point, through working on more advanced web-based interventions and then mobile apps, and now in the AI space, really kind of zeroing in on the mechanisms of change and really not caring at all about what the intervention looks like, as long as we can somehow change what's important to be changed by the end user. And so that, I mean, to me, that's really where, I get excited, and especially seeing new applications that, wow, that's really creative. And part of, my interest in being involved in this group is maybe more to be kind of sitting back and listening and not missing out on some of the things, because it is like drinking out of a fire hose right now, where it's just out of control trying to keep up. And you really do need multiple sources kind of incoming so that you can at least get some grasp of what's going on and trying to stay up to speed. So I'm really excited about that, kind of the networking, the community, the sharing of information, the ideas, the flow. And that's more for my own kind of intellectual curiosity and sustainment, and to kind of see where the field is going, and to be involved to some extent. So yeah, I'm really excited that you guys put this together, and looking forward to being involved in, whatever capacity, could be helpful.
Fantastic. Yeah, and the SDMH will, of course, be sending out a newsletter every month. Every once in a while, we will also put in a little recap as well. But of course, you're on the list. You'll be invited to all the meetings too. So we're very happy to have you here as well.
And Eric, I just wanted to say thank you for speaking up too, and like this concept of looking for newer mechanisms to be defined. Like there's a lot of what you see out there is trying to replicate the existing and make it fit into a mold that it wasn't necessarily built for. Yes, it can feel like okay, well, it's a conversation based thing. Like we'll narrow it down to these set of interventions, but Dr. Ali Darcy and with Wobot, she was actually aiming for exactly what you're talking about. Like what kind of mechanism is newly enabled by this work. So that tells me that just gives me some information on who might be really exciting to bring on and talk about that perspective.
Yeah, and just full disclosure, Ali and I were lab mates when Bar Taylor's lab back at Stanford back in the day.
No
So, yeah,
wonder. So
so
y'all were drinking the same Kool-Aid?
exactly, we were. Bar was a big advocate of, tapping into core mechanisms. And Rowan, it's great to have a SUNY Albany person, a University of Albany person on the call too. So, did a lot of time at SUNY Albany.
And Paige, you want to say that online or I guess not. Okay, Paige, I'm not going to put you on the spot to read your question out loud. Is there any interest or effort in connecting with international organizations? So that's Sasha. That's not something that we discussed, but it's certainly something I'd be excited about. What do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I think we can totally start to think a little bit about like what. And Ellie, I actually don't know very much about the Swiss government's transparently built AI tools, so would love to hear more about it, and like happy to bring people on to give talks if or collaborate from that group.
That's what.
Yeah, I don't know much either, but I'll just say this really quickly, sorry, and then I'll jump or just stop. But I'm interested in whether governments or and or universities should be creating AI data sets that people can use because a university could build in particularly for mental health, because it could build in the guardrails for it. And like, right now, obviously a lot of industry companies are leaders in this space, but like, should we consider like a data set and then these like guidance guardrails for AI tools to be public good, public infrastructure that is supported by our tax dollars, is one open question I have.
I'm unmuted, so I'll take it first, I guess. My general opinion is, um, if you were following this space before 2022, then you'd realize that everything that is defining today's paradigm in the most like these giant companies with their data centers and everything like that, it's all built on open source technology. The transformer architecture was something that Google open sourced back in 2017, and it was off to the races from there. Um, that I really like getting into it. That was a really exciting time to like openness was the standard. It was just like, oh, I've developed something, and we're sharing it, and we all get to see how everybody makes each other better, rather than this kind of like super competitive and like this environment that we have today. I'd be really excited about any kinds of open source efforts that are budding. Like identify an intent and a problem to solve and release the data set along with the methods. I do see that. I do see it in the various avenues of research I've been doing around LLM. So like you don't see big model the big companies releasing like the source and training data for their models, but some like in the bias mitigation frameworks and things like that, I've seen some open source materials. But yeah, Ellie, anybody who's doing work in open source, like if you find anybody in that who's doing work towards that direction, let this be a place to amplify that. Do you want to, anybody got one more question? I've just been enjoying the conversation so far. Anybody scared of anything? Like I know that Sachin and I have these calm, reassuring voices, but what's a concern that you have with the landscape and that we're navigating?
Yeah, I think this is something I see a lot is I think there's a lot of emerging state level regulations that are at odds with FDA regulation. And so the challenge for industry is really figuring out how and where do you follow regulation and where do you break it, or do you just have states that you just don't serve because their laws don't align with FDA? And I think certainly in a consulting capacity, I find it really challenging sometimes, like, Eric, like you had said, how quickly this is moving. And no matter how up to date, sometimes I feel the next day I feel like a dinosaur. And so it's like this regular back and forth where every day I'm learning something new, and it's like, research feels outdated if it's 6 months old. And, like flashback to earlier in my career when it was like, you just needed research that was at least 5 years old to be considered current and like that. So I think that because regulation is moving so fast, I see this as a real challenge for industry, but also for in mental health specifically, what makes that really challenging is that it's often clinicians who are the ones who hold the liability. And if companies can afford to break the law and pay whatever fines are result from that, but individual clinicians cannot. And so I think it brings down the capacity for clinicians to participate in these systems and to be users or product kind of, built into these systems that are trying to get people ultimately access to care. And so I think that's really the framing that I come at this with, and the struggle that I find is like most pressing for me.
Yeah, and I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris. Yep.
Go ahead. You got it. You got
I
it.
was going to say, even from the academic perspective, I think that's a conversation we're having too around like, how do you do research that like lasts past, whatever potential increase in model capabilities can
Hmm.
arise within the next couple of years, right? Like, at what point is it is your research strictly driven by model improvements rather than actual like much more broader methods, right? It's something we're thinking about too.
And
Yeah.
I just want to. I mean, I worked at Wobot, like so I feel that pain. I call it a clear and present danger. If like you have two companies. So let's use Ash and Wobot as examples. Ash recently, because of regulatory uncertainty, pulled out of the UK market, and they got that influx of people who had had become very attached to the application, and now where are they most likely to turn? A general purpose model. Same thing for Wobot Health. That was like our like a lot of people would think that the large language models outcompeted Wobot on its method of delivering through a tree-based system, but actually our second biggest referral source under Google was ChatGPT. So that was an indicator that people were reaching a certain point with these general purpose models that they said, okay, well, they would send them over to a Wobot, and that would be where they would get like this kind of more guided, purpose built experience, and that's gone. A lot of the reason behind that is because of kind of this confusing landscape that the companies were having to navigate, and I just love the idea of these companies where they focus on putting out research, collaborating across company lines and things like that. I love the research they put out, but I'm troubled by the idea of being punished for following the rules, because like the general purpose models still exist, and there's not necessarily like I can't belie all the efforts that they put around guardrails, but I just hoping for some kind of world where careful people can innovate at a fast pace as well.
Actually, adding to that, like one of my biggest concerns is the language translation between the policy and regulation, to to make it comprehensible for clinicians and technologists. So whatever policies are have, we cannot apply them if we are like, for example, computer scientists. Because if you, for example, the topic that I'm working on, the machine unlearning, it consumes a lot of resources and energy and a lot of things, right? And since the policymakers do not understand that part, they would assume like we are capable and able to delete all of the data points 100%, So I wish like there's like a common language that everybody can understand and know.
Well, Kira, that puts you on the hook to help us understand some of these state regulations and complexities. I'm sorry, but you're voluntold to do something with us at some
I'm
point.
up for the challenge. I will say I had a near panic attack at Chris when we met at the Dartmouth Digital Health Summit or Digital Therapeutic Summit. I was like ready to give up my Illinois license. I was like, if I'm going to do this work, I can't even be licensed in Illinois. And within a matter of days, I had swung to the other side and was like, it's okay. I can totally do this. I know how to navigate it, and the law felt less scary. And then, a week later, I was like, oh, just kidding. So all that to say, I think there's I think a lot of uncertainty about how these laws are still going to play out, and the attorneys I'm speaking to are uh, they don't know either. So we're just kind of waiting, right? Until you get character AI getting sued in Pennsylvania, you don't always know how things are gonna play out. And so I think other states are kind of following and how we're drawing the line between some of these things. So yeah, I definitely look forward to talking about it more.
Beautiful. Well, shout out Eastern time zone people. It is almost 7, and you stuck with us this entire time. Like Eric and Sachin, y'all are cool and all that, but like Eastern time zone people, like that's commitment right there.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not going to speak on your behalf, Sachin. I'm just say super excited to get together with you, take and digest this conversation we just had with our squad. We want to build this community, and yeah,
Yep. Thank you all for coming. Really, really excited to see you at future AI SIG meetings.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys
Thank
for sharing.
you.
thank you.
Bye.